Okay, folks, we're at Wildwater Kingdom. It's the day before Labor Day. Brian's with me. As everyone knows, Wildwater Kingdom is going to be closing tomorrow. Forever. Dun dun dun. Thank you, Cedar Fair, for screwing Aurora again. And we decided to come up with no kids today to enjoy the slides and the lazy river. And we're going to do a walking tour of Wildwater Kingdom from everybody who has not been here before. Wildwater Kingdom is on the SeaWorld side. And they closed the Geauga Lake Park out. All the coasters are gone except for one, which is the Big Dipper, which can be seen right across the lake in Geauga Lake. Any comments?
I think you're pretty much covering it.
Okay,
For those of you who have not ever been here, you've missed out. This has been a nice place to come.
I'm gonna flip us over here. Here we are walking up to the entrance. And by the way, when we came into the park and gave our pass, we were told by the associate that they did not inform anybody until that day that it got leaked to the press that they were closing. They had not told anybody ahead of time, which I think is very poor on Cedar Fair. So, but what can you do? They've already made up their mind. So right now we are going into the SeaWorld entrance, the old SeaWorld entrance of Wildwater Kingdom. Nothing has really changed either, except for them changing it from SeaWorld to Wildwater Kingdom.
Don't forget it would have said Six Flags too.
Yes, it would have been Six Flags World of Adventure when it used to be. That was before Cedar Fair took over. So this is up at the front gate. They are doing a bag check today, probably for the busy weekend, and we were told too via the park attendant that it has been a very busy weekend for everybody here at Wildwater Kingdom.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the old draft ride there.
And Raging Wolf Bob's was right next to the old raft ride. It would have been like right over here.
In fact, if you look really closely, it looks like there's some kind of a footer of some sort there.
So what we're going to do then is, here's one of the gates right there. That
The access points.
So that was part of the old Geauga Lake side. We're going to go and drive around to what would be the old SeaWorld side, which is where Wildwater Kingdom used to be.
One of the few buildings still standing on the property. See the broken windows? It's not much left anymore. There also would have been a path that would have been constructed by Six Flags along through here that would have connected the two parks after they became the Six Flags Worlds of Adventure.
Now, the building that's going to be coming up is the old theater building. It's this building right here.
And look how dilapidated it's become.
And we're going to, the shark encounter is back there. You can kind of see the top of it.
That was a building that was fairly well visible from Wildwater Kingdom. Speaking of Wildwater Kingdom, here's the former parking lot, the small parking lot. Normally on a busy day that was full.
And over on this side is the main parking lot.
That parking lot was never full.
So we are on Squires Road, which actually wraps around the old establishment. So right here is the entrance to it.
Good afternoon, friends from Fye Coasters. I'm your special correspondent today, the husband of Ivah. And as you can see, we are currently at the former SeaWorld property in Aurora, Ohio. SeaWorld, it was also known as Six Flags, and most recently as Wildwater Kingdom. If you look behind me, you can see what's left of the entrance to Wildwater Kingdom. This whole area was an amusement destination going back as far as the 1850s when the railroad came through here. And if you look over to this side, you can still see what's left of the railroad. There's actually some of the tracks are still in place, and although that is a former railroad, it's been abandoned now. But back in those days, before the advent of the automobile, there were people would travel by rail, and so there was actually a stop in this general area that people could come for a picnic. You cannot see it from this point. We've shown some views, and we'll show maybe a little bit more. Is a 55-acre spring-fed lake that's known as Geauga Lake. The lake is kind of unique in its location because it's actually located in two counties. We're currently in Portage County, but part of the lake is also in Geauga County, and so there's actually two jurisdictions that's part of this property. The lake was a popular picnic destination because of the railroad. It was originally known as Giles Pond back in the 1880s because one of the owners was named Sullivan Giles. By the early 1900s, a dance hall was constructed. Lake swimming was very, very popular here, as well as picnicking, and an Olympic-sized swimming pool was built later. By the 1920s, a roller coaster was built, in 1925 to be exact. It cost $500,000, which would have been a huge sum of money for that day, and was the tallest and fastest roller coaster in the world at that time. It went by several names, the Coaster, the Clipper, and beginning in 1969 it became known as the Big Dipper. The park continued to go as an amusement park with the roller coaster in place, and by the 1960s was beginning to decline. In 1968, a group of businessmen were executives at Cedar Point and actually left their jobs to form what became known as Funtime Incorporated. Funtime bought Geauga Lake and instantly began pumping money into the park to improve it as it had really begun declining. The big thing, though, that went in their favor took place when they were able to induce SeaWorld to move to this area and build a marine life park. They were actually looking at a couple of sites. one of which was in Sandusky, and that fell through, but they got them to decide to come to this location, which is what's behind me now. This was property that was also owned by Fun Time, and they leased it to them, and in 1970 SeaWorld was built. The park continued, the two parks really fed well off of each other as they promoted events together, and both parks saw attendance really go up dramatically as a result of the relationship that they had. The relationship would end up lasting for about 30 years. Geauga Lake, which was on the other side of the lake, the amusement park, added 2 aero looping coasters in the late 70s, and were really known for being innovators, because in the early 1980s they were one of the first parks to offer a water park included in the amusement park, and it was all for the same price. They ended up adding a tsunami wave pool the next year, and the attendance hit over 1 million visitors for the first time. They celebrated their centennial anniversary in 1988 with a new coaster that was called Raging Wolf Bops. It was constructed by Din Corporation, the same people that built Main Street at Cedar Point, and also were responsible, Charles Din was, for the construction of the Beast at Kings Island. They added a Huss Top Spin ride in 1993 and was the first of that kind in North America. In 1995, the park was sold. Fun Time Incorporated was actually sold to Premier Parks, who is out of Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and they instantly began pumping serious money into Geauga Lake. They added 2 coasters, they added a drop tower, they added a ton of stuff, an Intamin raft ride, but the big news came in 1998 when they acquired Six Flags, which was kind of down on its luck at the time. Premier Parks wanted Six Flags so that way they could begin rebranding parks like Geauga Lake into Six Flags parks that would be more well known. That happened here in 2000 when Geauga Lake was transformed into Six Flags Ohio. And when this was done, they actually spent $40 million to do this. They added 4 new roller coasters, they added a Shoot the Chute ride, and they added a whole new kids area. This was just the beginning though, because they would end up acquiring this property behind me, which was formerly SeaWorld, beginning in 2001, as Six Flags didn't like the idea of working with their neighbor. They wanted to own them. And so the property was purchased for $110 million, and Six Flags immediately took down any fences that separated the parks and made it into one gigantic park known as Six Flags Worlds of Adventure. It was the largest theme park in the world at that time, as the property encompasses over 700 acres. As you can see by the area, it was kind of tough for that because you had 2 main entrances, you had 2 gigantic parking lots, and there was tons of confusion that would ensue. They would add a new roller coaster in 2001, but they did not get any of the animals from SeaWorld, and so they had to bring animals from other properties in here to perform. By 2002, they brought in a new killer whale that was named Geauga from France, because they did not have a killer whale after SeaWorld left. Unfortunately, debt became a major issue for Six Flags, and so the entire property was sold in early 2004 to Cedar Fair of Sandusky, Ohio. Cedar Fair made 2 major changes from the very get-go, changing the name of the park back to Geauga Lake and closing the Marine Life Park, which is on behind me again, which saw attendance really decline rapidly. They also made major changes to the ride names, as they didn't own copyrights that Six Flags had. Many of the rides were themed after things like Batman and Superman and Looney Tunes, and all of that stuff was changed, which also hurt the attendance. Wildwater Kingdom was added in 2005, and it was built on a portion of this property here. It was a small water park, about 15 acres or so in total, and it ended up replacing the water park on the other side of the lake, which was integrated into Six Flags. By 2006, the park's season was cut back though because of the declining attendance, and a major expansion that was to have taken place here at Wildwater Kingdom also was scaled back big time, which began to show that the park was going to decline. At the end of 2006, two of the most popular roller coasters were removed, which further speculated that perhaps the park was going to shut down. And indeed, at the end of the 2007 operating season, the Geauga Lake amusement park did indeed shut down. Many of the roller coasters were moved to other Cedar Fair properties, and my guess is you've probably ridden many of them at different parks. I know I have. And this property here became known as Geauga Lake's Wildwater Kingdom. That stayed with that name until 2011, when the Geauga Lake prefix was removed, just becoming Wildwater Kingdom. The park did not see any major additions over the years that followed, and late in 2016 it was announced that the water park would shut down as well. And so from that point on, it's all been taken out and removed. The Big Dipper roller coaster was the last amusement ride that stood on the ride side of the property, and it was demolished in October of 2016. And there's been some videos that have been shared here in the fall of 2017 where the last of the slide complexes were removed from this property. And so pretty much all that's left now is just a bunch of ruins, as much of what was here has been flattened. The future of the property is very much in doubt, as the two municipalities, that being Aurora, where we currently are, and Bay Bridge Township, which is on the other side of the lake, have not been able to agree as to how to split tax revenues and safety services. And so currently the property is up for sale. Cedar Fair still owns it, but it's very much up for sale and waiting for redevelopment. So that pretty much gives you the history of Geauga Lake. Thanks for watching.